Jensen Schrader. Looks like this is a review hearing. I think I asked you all to kind of meet together at our last hearing a few months ago and see if there was a way of resolving matters. Ms. Mueller, I have received from you a summary of for today's hearing, basically saying that what each party would like and that we haven't reached much of an agreement.
Yes, it came from me, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. I
It's
misspoke
okay.
as to came from, but thank you. I appreciate you putting that together for me to summarize those things. Ms. Walker, from your perspective, where do you think we should go from here?
Your Honor, the best thing I could think of is that we would get a professional psychological assessment of all the players, including Jensen, and see what would be in his best interest. Because obviously, limited guardianship shouldn't go on till the end of time. Yet Mr. Armsby is bonded very much with Jensen, as are the parents. And so unless there's a red flag, I think we have to possibly share custody like they do in family court. I can't think of any other resolution. I know that Mr. Rushlow Ormsby doesn't agree with that. And Brad Thornton agrees with the concept of an evaluation. He doesn't know that he would agree with the parenting time as I had suggested it, like summers versus school year.
Okay. All right. Let me talk to the parents first, one at a time, and then I'll talk to Mr. Roschlu Armsby, and then I'll get the assessment of Mr. Delaney as the guardian ad litem. So let me start with Mom. Savannah, what are your thoughts on what has been proposed by Ms. Walker?
I completely agree with Marie. I think that because Jensen is bonded to more than one of us, completely transitioning to custody would not be best in the interest of the child. So it would have to be a transition, as stated in Marie's paper, as well as I understand where the other party's concerns of exposing the child to unnecessary trauma might come from. But as Marie has also stated in the meeting yesterday, we don't know, we're not professionals, how it would affect Jensen. So a psychological evaluation to determine the child's perspective, I guess, would be best.
All right, thank you. Mr. Thornton, what are your thoughts?
So just going back to the meeting that we had yesterday, I guess I was a bit confused when it was first brought up. I don't know if I misunderstood something or something had changed and I'd missed it. But yeah, I do not agree with the summer. Like, if we're going to ease into this, we'd have to ease into the summer because he sometimes just has times where he struggles with switchover. Um, but where it comes to the psychological evaluation, that would give us all better insight on what's really going on and if this is even possibly something that could happen. Um, but from my experience, it was brought up yesterday. I have a stepdaughter that was in the system for a while, and she was returned to us at 2 years old. So I have experience in what like could happen. And she is now 4, and we are just getting to the end of the complications caused by removing a child from one home to another. So that's where all my concerns come from, is if we were to move this along too quickly, we risk traumatizing Jensen. And the response I usually get when I bring this up is, oh, well, there's therapy. Well, therapy shouldn't be a solution for a problem that was caused. Therapy should be a solution to something that may have or wasn't easily worked around. I feel like therapy has kind of become a crutch.
Do you have a different proposal than what has been offered at this point?
Off the top of my head, not really. If we were to try and move to the summer, it would have to be trying to maybe do every every weekend, or something that kind of works toward it. But I would prefer that he stays where he is, because without the psychological evaluation, I think the risks are just way too high for what could
Okay.
happen to him. And my whole concern here is doing what's best for my son.
So to summarize, your position would be you're okay with the request for a psychological evaluation, but you're not sure yet what the parenting time after that should look like. You may want to go a little bit more slowly than what has been proposed. Would that be fair?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rochelu at Armsby, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Brad. If we, psychological evaluation is fine for the four of us. But I would rather use somebody that's not recommended by an attorney. I would rather use somebody that's not been recommended by anybody else. I'm sure we can figure that out and use somebody that nobody knows or something like that. My biggest concern is he's being, how do I put this politely? He's being told not to call people by certain names, not to tell people that they like them and stuff like that. Jensen is almost 4 years old.
Hang on a second, sir. I need to know who he is when you say that.
Jensen. Sorry, Jensen.
All right. So Jensen is being told what?
That he shouldn't call me Dada, that I'm Terry. He shouldn't call my daycare lady Mom, she's Kelly. And he's being told to not like people because he's almost 4 years old. And until the last couple visits that we've had, that kid tells me and everybody else that I'm number one. I am no longer number one, and neither is Brad. He doesn't like Brad and he don't like me, but he loves everybody else. And somebody is filling his head with this. And he says, Banana says that I don't have to call her or call you Dada or Daddy. And I'm sorry, if that's the way she's going to play the game, I'm not that petty. I'm not going to tell him that he can't call her Savannah or Mom. We've never told him he cannot call her Mom.
Okay.
But she is telling him that he can't call me Dada or Daddy.
Hang on. Wait. This is not going to be an air your grievances session. This is a court. Hang on. Let me finish before you take off again. So we're not going to accomplish anything by airing our grievances today. I would hope that all of us have this young child's best interests at heart, and creating tension between all the parties involved isn't going to help that, which is one reason why probably the psychologist was suggested as a method of resolving some of these things. There are going to be hurt feelings no matter what happens with this case down the road. And all of us need to bite our tongues when it comes to that. Whether you think somebody else did something right, wrong, or otherwise, the purpose of everything that we're trying to do is to get this young child through this procedure and into his life as a young adult with as little trauma as possible. And the people that are around him, that love him and that take care of him, don't need to be squabbling with each other, or we need to minimize that as much as possible. So having said that, I don't need to know what everybody's grievances are. I simply need to know, are you in agreement with the proposal to have a psychologist involved? And that sounds like everybody is.
Yes,
and
as long as
at
it's
this
not
point,
as long as it's not the one recommended.
Well, let me ask you why you think that that's a problem.
I would just like to use one that's never been involved with the attorney, for one.
What about the attorney knowing well, quite frankly, most attorneys know every single qualified individual in Northern Michigan because there are so few of them here. So to say we want somebody that's never been involved with an attorney is almost impossible.
One that's not recommended by the attorney. How's that?
Why do you think that is an issue?
Brad has the same issue. I find it weird that we're choosing one that, just off the wall of an attorney. Why not look it up and find one between all of us?
Well, do you have somebody that you would recommend?
I do not, but I've never had to deal with this portion.
Exactly.
I've never had
that's
because mine's always been chosen by friend of the court, or I mean, not friend of the court, from foster care. So this is something new to me. This portion is new to me. Mine's usually been done by foster care. They're the ones that recommend everything.
Well, let me do this. How much time do you think that you need to come up with a recommendation?
I could probably get one next week. I'm kind of, this week was kind of messed up last night when I had 2 house fires.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But typically the courts try not to have things hanging over their heads for long periods of time because it makes for bad decision making. So the parties are typically, if one side says, hey, I want this, and the other side says, no, I don't, the other side's usually required to bring something to the table that says, here's the alternative.
Well, we just got the thing yesterday. It was a holiday. So it's not like I was able to contact anybody to find out.
And I understand that. So that's why I'm thinking about giving you some time to come up with your own recommendation. I
have some friends that in the foster care system. I can ask them also what they would recommend.
All right. September 16th is the next day that I would have available to address this issue. So it sounds like everybody's in agreement as to a psychologist. What I'm going to ask Mr. Rosch, Armsby, and Mr. Thornton and Ms. Mueller to do is, if they want somebody different than what's been recommended, to bring to the next, actually to make it an alternative recommendation, and to send that information to Ms. Walker, to everybody else prior to the next court hearing on the 16th. And then if you guys can reach an agreement, we'll do what you guys agree to. If you can't reach an agreement, then I'll hear both sides and make a decision at the next court hearing. Ms. Walker, are you going to have any problems meeting with us on September the 16th?
Maybe, Your Honor, the way my contract is, Wexford County owns my Tuesdays. So,
okay.
I don't have anything here, but I can, if it's only going to be like 15 minutes, I can ask the judge to excuse myself.
I can't imagine it being much longer than that. Basically, it would be, here's my thought, here's your thought. Tell me why you don't like it, and I'll make a decision.
Sure. And maybe I'm not biased. I've had this psychologist go against my preferences in the past, but maybe Mr. Delaney knows one, because I'm not from that side of the state.
All right, Mr. Delaney, your thoughts?
I have a few, so I always invite the court to interrupt my monologue here if I can. Having done this work for a couple of decades in this court, the limited guardianship became a nuance, if you will, Judge, because and we all know the court's predecessor was a custody lawyer, did this work significantly, and these limited, and I haven't had very many, this may be one or two that I've had, the limited guardianship came to the court, and so DHS was not involved, and often they're short term, as that term is defined in juvenile court, and I see Ms. Walker agreeing, 1 year, and then all of a sudden it's 4 years, it's gotten behind you. And one of the things that we observed about this, and we were all learning, was that there was not a case service plan at the beginning of the case. When you have an abuse neglect case, and it's rare that another attorney agrees with me so quickly, Judge, I'm unaccustomed to that. I don't get it from judges. I usually get no, and I get overruled, so it's a new day for me. So the court knows, well, we have these hearings every Tuesday. We're going to have more today. The department's right on the ground floor, and they have an army of people, psychologists, therapists, they're visiting the home. And the point is, the parent knows what they have to do. and then the court gets to check in on them every 91 days. If they do it, they get the kids back. If they don't, you terminate. Now, of course, it's not that easy, but you don't have that record before you. So if you look at the file, the child was 2 days old and he was placed with Mr. Rocheleau. That's been his life for 4 years. And there was no case service plan that I'm aware, but I haven't gone through the file from top to bottom. I got appointed a year later. And then in 2023, Judge, DHS was ordered to investigate this and file a report. I don't have that. And I think they just did a home study. But that would have been the time, that would have been, I don't have the month, in 2023, there's a court order directing DHS to investigate. And if that had happened, they might have intervened and filed a petition. It's not lack of care and custody, right? Because there's a guardianship, but is it lack of contact? And that went on for some time too. Then you would have had the arsenal of DHS at your disposal. There are psychologicals for the father. That's at least 3 years old. And that's from Old Town Psychological. Mother had one, I think, in 2023. That's also antiquated. That was by Go Shock Behavioral. Then there was a parenting schedule, which seems to be followed here and there. Then there was a bench trial in December of 2023. Mr. Leninson, God rest his soul, represented Mr. Rocheleau. The mother had different counsel at that time. I think that morphed into a settlement conference, and Terry may remember also, but we agreed to continue the guardianship by agreement. And then we had mediation in 2024, August of 2024. And that was unsuccessful because obviously the parents want the child returned, at least the mother does, and Mr. Rocheleau doesn't agree with that. So this is sort of what, in the front of the court in Traverse City, I think that's the jurisdiction, will take a back seat to this court, as it should. They don't want to get involved until you tell them to. You certainly couldn't dissolve, in my view. I would oppose dissolution of the guardianship today because it tosses the child up into the air. We really can't do that. We have to maintain the permanence. But what will the court do going forward? So sort of bouncing this off some of the people in the department. You do need, you're going to come to a cross in the fork in the road, Judge. Either return the child or terminate. And what will you have for an evidentiary record to do that? Not much. Maybe some new psychologicals. So I know that the court's staff has looked into these guardianships, I'm told. Or would there be another referral to the department to investigate? We already had one, so I'm not trying to alarm the mother by saying that has to happen, but you already have a court order. You might use their resources, Judge, to build this case for you. And you're going to be starting late, not to the court's fault. You inherited this. I know the court's predecessor is still available to bounce this case off of, but it's untethered. And I think you need to begin to build a record now. What is expected of this mother and father to get this child back? I don't think they know. And if they don't know, you couldn't terminate, but then you couldn't return the child either. So, and you've got a 4-year, there's a lot of permanence with this child, with this guardian. So we're running out of time, but I know I'm long here, but so that's what I think is that the court has to build a case service plan. Here's what you need to do. Were there drugs, were there alcohol? I'm not saying there were. What are the issues? Updated psychologicals, parenting time, supervised, all the things you do in a DHS case. And you may have to start now. But I think that I was advised that to involve DHS, that another order would go over, or central intake is where those things start, and they'll investigate. And they might file a petition but the parents shouldn't be concerned about that if they can comply and get this child back. But that's what the court doesn't have, is its own DHS to build this case and come up with a case service plan. So that's kind of where you're at, Judge. And you don't have a good record to make a decision to dissolve the guardianship or terminate. So you're in the middle, but you can become tethered again, I think, if you build this and come up with a plan for the parents on what they need to do. If they succeed, then the child goes back. If they don't, then you have to terminate.
All right. Ms. Walker, any final comment?
Yes, amazingly, I agree with Mr. Delaney. In Grand Traverse, when I do these, we have guardianship reviews where DHS has to write a report every time. And I'm new to this case, so I'm not sure what happened here, but those reports, when I'm the gal in Grand Traverse, when we do them, then DHS and I talk and we say, what's going on? Is this progress? Is this not progress? And it is somewhat handled like an NA case.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the guidance and counseling from both the attorneys. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to grant the request for psychological evaluation. I'm going to give the parties approximately 14 days. Well, I'm going to give them 7 days to come up with their own recommendations as to different psychological evaluator, who they want to use for that and why, and to exchange that information between all four parties, Ms. Walker, Ms. Mueller, Mr. Thornton, and Mr. Rosch, Armsby. And then Mr. Delaney, do you want to be involved in that process?
Yeah, I could weigh in. I mean, I'm supposed to be neutral, but I might offer some local names that might be.
And let's involve everybody that's on the call today in that process. So Mr. Rosch, Armsby, if you wish to have somebody else from your private determination, that's fine. Send that information to all the other parties so that they can do their investigation and find out if that would be an appropriate person. I would hope that you would put down where he can be contacted and what his information is and why you believe that that person would be appropriate in a short summary so that everybody has all that same information. And Ms. Mueller, Ms. Thornton, Mr. Thornton, and Mr. Delaney, I would hope that you would also, if there's going to be any recommendations made, provide contact information, list of maybe where their website is so that people can go and look at that information. Ms. Walker's already made her recommendation, but I would ask her to provide any additional information she has about websites or why she made the recommendation that she did. So I'll give you 7 days to make that exchange of information. And then hopefully the next 7 days can be spent trying to reach a resolution. If parties can say, yes, this one person appears to be the best, or we'll all at least agree that this person should do that, then I'd ask Ms. Walker to circulate a proposed order for everyone's signature, and we'll simply make that the next step in the process. If we're not able to make an agreement as to all of that, then we'll have a hearing on the 16th for about 15 minutes for everybody to say, all right, here's what I want and why. And then I'll make a decision as to who is to do that psychological evaluation, and we'll set some timeframes for that to be accomplished. Ms. Walker, if there is an agreement, I would ask that it not only that you set an order indicating who is to do it, but that you set some timeframes as to how long that process is going to take, so that we can have at least some indication of when there's going to be a review hearing, so that we don't lose track of this case. And then my thought on what we do after the psychological evaluation comes back is we have a review hearing at that point, and I begin to set forward some of the things that Mr. Delaney and Ms. Walker talked about as far as where do we go from here, not only parenting time, but what do the parents need to do? What are some milestones that need to be accomplished as we move towards either continuing the guardianship and moving towards adoption or foster care or whatever that looks like, or moving the child back to the parents' control and how that works, and whether that involves a dissolution of the guardianship and a decision by a custody court, or what, or whatever else that looks like. So any questions, Ms. Walker, is where we need to go from here?
I have all of it, except could we have a DHHS worker do a guardianship review for the next hearing at least? I think they're court ordered. That's why I'm asking.
I'm going to ask that I don't know if our local, because again, I'm new to the process here as well. I don't know that MDHHS here in Gaylord will do that. I'm not saying that they won't. I'm simply saying that I don't know whether they will do that. So if you would contact them and ask that specific question so that you can inform me of it on the 16th, I'd appreciate that. And I'll have our court set a date or set a time on the 16th. Do we know what that would be already?
It will have to either be like 8:50 or like 10:45. It's pretty booked.
Ms. Walker, 8:50 or 10:45, which would be better for you?
8:50, Your Honor.
All right.
If that's okay with you.
Yep, we'll set that for that time period. Everybody else will just simply be on Zoom again, like you are today. And we'll get that done as quickly as we possibly can. Know that it's going to be a relatively short hearing. Again, it's not going to be everything and anything that you want to talk about. It's who's going to be the psychologist and why, and all of the information that you give to me should already be in a summary form to everybody else within a week. All right. That'll be the
Thank
order of
you.
the court. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time. That's all for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Or a few minutes. Okay.